Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream for Week 9 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the last 3 hours, we've been all potentially watching the New York Jets pull a game out of absolutely nowhere. The first half was, I almost fell asleep during the first half. I'm going to be honest. Unless people were coming to the house, knocking on the door, asking for candy, I was going to fall asleep. Outside of that, in the second half, a completely different story. For those of you who had, of course, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, even after Davante Adams looked like he got knocked out for the game, left to the locker room, somehow comes back, and with the late game heroics, scores himself a touchdown. I told you I was going to bench him in my main league so that you could all prosper for his overall success, and obviously he was found. Tank Dell on the other side, hyper relevant. Of course, Joe Mixon continuing to look great. If it wasn't for the fact that this team was down for majority of that second half, they would have continued to run the ball and find even more upside. Either way, besides talking about the Thursday night matchup and all that is, potentially, to talk about all the different circumstances, the hope that Nico Collins does return next week to kind of give themselves a little bit more boost of an offensive performance. Outside of Tank Dell, there's nobody to throw the ball to within that offense. So Nico's obviously going to be relevant. Outside of talking about the Thursday night matchup, the lack of usage with Breece Hall within the receiving game, etc., we're going to be talking about all things fantasy football, whether it is starter sit questions, potential pickups going into this upcoming week, if in fact you are in need of a player. Obviously, there's a lot of information regarding players that we're still not, 100% kind of sure on per se. T. Higgins, not 100% sure. Puka Nacua earlier today left practice with a re-aggravated knee injury. Again, there's a lot of things that as we progress, even Jordan Love, we're not 100% sure on. We did see some promising signs, though. He did end up practicing in a limited capacity today, which is definitely a positive. But as we progress, as we get closer to Sunday morning, remember, the rankings are always going to potentially fluctuate. Keep that in mind. What I tell you today could very easily change in 2 days from now if, in fact, we get more information regarding players. Outside of that, again, if you're going to send in a question, whether it is via in the live chat or via super chat, make sure to include your scoring format. All of that encompassed would be greatly appreciated. Outside of that, earlier today, we did drop the quarterback and tight ends ranking video on the channel. Again, those are my top 16 tight ends and quarterbacks. During that video, I did specifically suggest these two players as goes for tonight in regards to underdog entry, Davante Adams and Tank Dell. I obviously paired them up with Jake Ferguson and Devon Achane going higher on their receptions. This should hit very easily, and hopefully if you followed, we're continuing on our streak of success for these primetime games. Outside of that, I had a couple other plays, and we'll talk about those as we continue on. Okay. So, what's up, guys? Again, this is a later stream. That game took a lot longer than it potentially should have in any sort of capacity, but we're here nonetheless. Let's see what we have in the live chat. Isaac Espinoza in the chat says, start Waddle, Reed, or Hopkins. I'm going to probably play Reed there under the assumption that we have an active Jordan Love. If Jordan Love is not active at that point, I would just pivot in the direction of either Waddle or Hopkins, which at that position, unless Waddle gets himself a huge target share opportunity, I think Hopkins could outscore him. For right now, I'm going to say Waddle just because, again, we don't know how much Hopkins is going to play even this upcoming week. So I'll probably lean towards just playing Waddle in that circumstance. Again, if Jordan Love is inactive. Let's see here. Scrolling back up. What do we have? QB says, I benched Davante Adams. Good signs for next week, though. Yeah, those are positive signs to say the very least. Let's see here. Cap sends it a question. Says, pick 2, start Puka, Josh Downs, or Tony Pollard. It depends on scoring format. Again, guys, if you guys are going to send in a question, regardless of whether it is super chat or live chat, you got to include your scoring format. If there's no scoring format there, I'm just going to assume that it's a half PPR, which might not help you in the long run if it's a standard or a full PPR in that circumstance, because, a player could be more valued in a half PPR in comparison to a full PPR just off of my overall projection model. Tommy Boo sent in a question, says, sup, Andrew? I need help. Start 3, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Kareem Hunt, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Downs, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Thank you. Okay, so looking at this across the board, if we're playing 3 of these players, without the scoring format, we definitely need to know that. Never mind, you said it in the live chat, full PPR, beautiful, thank you. Okay, so in regards to your full PPR question, Tommy Vu, let me go ahead and pull up my Patreon rankings right now so I can just cross-reference that and then just use that as kind of the rule of thumb in regards to these players. So what do we have here? We have Marvin Harrison, Josh Downs. Those two are going to be really valuable in the conversation. Hawkinson, I'd wait on a week. Kareem Hunt, I'm not going to be interested in. It's either going to be James Conner or Josh Jacobs in this circumstance. So this is the way that I go about it. Let's go ahead and let's see where do I have Harrison Jr. here. Harrison Jr. Okay. So he sits there. Jacobs is there. Got it. So this is the way that I would like to approach it, Tommy Vu. I want to play Josh Downs, Marvin Harrison, and Josh Jacobs. If in fact we do not have, what's his name? If in fact we do not have Jordan Love active, at that point I would pivot to playing Connor. So for now, it will be Jacobs, Marvin, and Downs under the assumption that Love is active. Otherwise, you pivot. Okay? Thank you. Raghav sends in a question. Raghav says, in a full PPR, start/sit, my quarterback, Love and Darnold, with Stafford and Goff on the waiver wire. Running backs are Achane, James Conner, Josh Jacobs, Hubbard. Wide receivers are Jamar Chase, Kupp, Evan Ingram, Ferguson. Flex is any of the previous or Downs. Okay, got it. Yeah, Downs in the full PPR is absolutely going to be your flex from here on out, Raghav. In terms of the plays for this week, again, if Love is active, I'd like to play him. Otherwise, you can roll with Darnold, and you're very comfortable doing so. Those are both incredible plays, in my opinion, in the given week, based on matchups and based on the quarterback play in itself. Your running backs are correct with Achane and Josh Jacobs as the 1-2 hit. And then we have, of course, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp correct. Evan Ingram's great. So, yeah, as of right now, play Downs in the flex, and let's just wait and see what the status of your quarterback is. No need to change anything in that circumstance. Let's see here. We did have a little bit more confirmation from Cap. He says, I play in a half PPR. All right, Cap, let me go back up to your prior question and see if I can find it. So you had said start Puka, Josh Downs, or Tony Pollard. Again, I don't even know if Puka's healthy. Obviously, if he plays this weekend with the knee injury, I'm still going to fire him up because he's Puka Nacua, right? But, man, the fact that he had to leave practice with the re-aggravated injury it's not a great thing. So if, unfortunately, that injury is going to hold him out this week, the answer is set for you. Due to his absence, you'd play Downs and Pollard. If, in fact, Puka Nacua is active this week, I'd play Puka Nacua with Pollard in a half PPR scoring format. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Venomous Raptor 7, who says, traded Najee Harris, Rachaad White, and Calvin Ridley for Breece Hall and JSN. What do I do now given today? Also, start Hawkinson or Mark Andrews, Tracy or JSN, 12-man full PPR with one flex. Okay, so considering you made that trade, again, I don't like JSN very much. In a full PPR, I can understand that he has like solid value, but really he's just like a 10-point per week kind of guy in a full PPR. Again, Breece Hall, not scoring a touchdown, getting very little receiving utilization. This is happening on multiple consecutive weeks. The offense is pretty much predicating this because, they're getting down early in games and having to fight back and throw the ball, and obviously not in his general direction. So unfortunately, as we progress, you're going to have yourself these kind of ups and downs, but I think you're still fine in the long run. As for this week, Mark Andrews or Hawkinson, as of right now, I'm going to lean towards Mark Andrews. I want to see a full week of Hawkinson before I start him over a tight end of that caliber. Obviously, Lamar Jackson hasn't practiced the last 2 days. If he ends up missing this week, then you'd fire up Hawkinson pretty comfortably. As for Tracy and JSN, as of right now, Tyrone Tracy is in the concussion protocol. The chances are he is not going to play this upcoming week against the Commanders, so expect to play JSN in his absence this week. All right, let's see here. Steve says, is Hunt going to play? We won't know until tomorrow. Again, guys, a lot of the overall injury information isn't going to be designated at a full understanding until tomorrow. Again, there's a lot of speculation. There are a lot of times over the course of the season where a player will not practice both Wednesday and Thursday. If they get any sort of participation by Friday, it'll give us a greater understanding. If they don't practice on Friday, at that point, we'll know to not expect them to be in the lineup this upcoming week. Anthony O says, what's up, Andrew? Sent in the chat. All right, Anthony, let's see here. Where is Anthony O's question? Anthony, you're going to have to do me a favor because I'm looking at the chat and there's no question outside of your single super chat. So the issue currently is, Anthony, is that you need to take your question and never mind, I found it. Why did it do that? There it is. I just needed to update the chat. Never mind. We're good to go. I thought it was one of those glitches where it shadow banned your question because you had typed it too many times. I see it. No problem. We're good. Full PPR. I need to start a tight end. Do I play Kraft, Kincaid, or Hawkinson? Out of those three, again, if Jordan Love is active this week, I am playing Tucker Kraft. If he is not active, then at that point, I'm pivoting to playing Hawkinson. Thank you. Moving on to the next question for Flex. DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, or Ramondre Stevenson. In a full PPR scoring format, I probably just lean towards the play of Khalil Shakir here. It's a solid, I would say, 6 receptions, 60 receiving yards-ish, base minimum, like a solid 12 points, where I don't have to worry about anything else outside of that, to where I'm pretty comfortable rolling him out, getting my 12 points with the upside of him potentially having an even bigger game or a touchdown. So Khalil Shakir in a full PPR, very safe in that category. Benny G sends in a question. Thank you, Benny. Benny says, the following. Good day, my goat and chat. Do an Aussie a favor and like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Or a stingray? What the heck is that? We'll get your quarterback. Okay. Well, that is disrespectful to an extent. But as an Aussie, I guess, that works. Thank you very much, Benny. Very nice of you. Kiwi Sports sends in a question. Kiwi says, in a half PPR, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex to pick. I benched Devontae Adams, LOL. Pick 4, Reed, Downs, Devontae Smith, Brian Robinson, Kareem Hunt, Evan Ingram, JSN, Tillman, Adunze. 2 wide receivers, 2 flex. I think it's pretty simple from my perspective. In a half PPR, the way that I'm going about it, just like in the same way in which I ranked it earlier today within our videos, I'm playing Downs, I'm playing Devontae Smith, I'm playing Brian Robinson, and I'm playing Kareem Hunt. Those are the 4 that I'd like in my lineup this week. Thank you. Justin M sends in a question, says start 2 in a full PPR. Swift, Olave, DJ Moore. Yeah, give me Swift and give me Olave as of right now. Those would be my 2 preferred out of the group. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Justin, another Justin M, who says, should I accept this trade, my Jaden Daniels and Romeo Dobbs, for Jaden Reed and Jamison Williams? I need more context. If you don't have a top 5 quarterback to pivot to after Jaden Daniels, I say no, I don't want the trade. I'd rather have Jaden Daniels because he is a top 5 guarantee. You will only have to replace him once this season, which is his upcoming bye week, and that is it. Jose Rodriguez says, happy I trusted Garrett Wilson. How valuable is he now? I mean, I think he's still just as valuable as he was last week. Look, the performance is an upside performance, sure. But it's not like he wasn't valuable last week when he had, 6 catches for 100 receiving yards. Like I talked about, in this Wednesday's wide receiver episode, 3 of the last 4 games prior to today were 100-plus receiving yards for him. It's not like Garrett Wilson has dipped his value because Devontae Adams has joined this offense. So going forward, I mean, does his value go up? I mean, maybe if players are getting injured around him, but otherwise I still had him in a top tier conversation within the top 15 wide receivers going forward. Let's see here. Now, in the minds of somebody in your league, his value may have gone up to where he might, somebody might want to take him off your hands for Amon-Ra, and at that point you'd be like, all right, I'm interested, or you go after Nico Collins or something of that extent. Kamikaze says, hey Andrew, I have running back depth of Gibbs, Achane, Brian Robinson, Hubbard, Chase Brown, Irving. I consider the last 4 tradable, which I agree to. Yeah, I agree with that. I was offered Brown for Evans. You were offered... Okay, so you would have to give away Chase Brown for Mike Evans. Your wide receivers currently are Adams, Smith, Pickens, Deontay Johnson. Who to trade? I mean, look, at this point, considering the running back depth you have, I have no issue with this trade at all. Again, it's very much so forward thinking. You would only make this trade again if you have a win-loss record that is in the positive column. If you have a negative win-loss record, probably not a trade that you would make because, again, this is very much so forward thinking. You would be preparing for weeks 12 and beyond. And if you can afford to do so, then yeah, I think this trade definitely does benefit you in the long run because when you look at the schedule for the Buccaneers, let me just go ahead and pull it up so I can kind of reference to it. The schedule for the Buccaneers after Mike Evans is expected to return weeks 12 and beyond, they take on the Giants, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Los Angeles Chargers, Cowboys, and then the Panthers again. They've got a very easy schedule. I honestly think there is a good chance that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can win 6 in a row there after the bye week in comparison to where they'll have to go in the next 2 weeks, which is at Kansas City and then at home against San Francisco, which they'll probably lose the next 2 and then string together 6 to potentially make a playoff run at this. But yeah, I think with all that into consideration, if in fact you're in a situation where you can make this kind of trade and wait for his return, then yeah, you go for it. All right, let's see here. Let's scroll down. Evan sends in a question, says you to go. No real talk. I'm 1-7. Looking bleak. Jeez, 1-7, brother. What happened? I'm not giving up on hope yet. Okay, very well. Who are some players, preferably running backs, that are buy low? Got to restructure? Brother, at 1-7, you're going to have to win out every single game. So really, the way you go about it is not a matter of buy low. It's a matter of who has the best overall potential weeks every week. And you are trading for the best potential matchups every week. At 1-7, theoretically, if you're playing in a 10-team league and only 6 teams make the playoffs, you're going to need 8 wins. Last time I checked, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Let's say, okay, there's only 6 weeks left. Let's say you don't have a week 15 bye. So let's say it's a weeks 16 through 18 fantasy playoffs, which is not supposed to be the case, but let's say it is. Let's say you have 7 weeks. You have to literally win out every game. So at this point, it's not a matter of like what players are buy lows. It's a matter of, is your team avoiding all bye weeks every single week out, and are you playing the best overall matchups within the upcoming performance? Because you have to. Every week, you should trade your entire team, legitimately. That's how you should approach this. Hitting the waivers hard and trading your team every single damn week until you get the perfect lineup for that given week. Because right now, you're playing DFS. You're not playing fantasy football. Because after you lose one more time, it is over at that point. Unless, of course, a lot of teams in your league have a lot of losses where it's a top-heavy kind of circumstance. All right, let's see here. Brian Colorado sent in a question, nothing attached to it. Brian, where's your message, my man? Let's see if I can find it. Nothing attached yet. I'll just wait until that message. Justin says, I have Jalen Hurts 2 in a full PPR. I countered the trade to replace Williams with Brian Robinson. That would be far more preferable. If you can do that, instead of getting Jameson Williams, getting Brian Robinson, at that point, I'd be very happy to accept that deal, considering you have Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Justin, thank you. Roy Shaver says, questions in the chat. Thank you, Roy. Let me go ahead and find that for you right now. Roy Shaver, where art thou? Roy, I don't really see anything, my man. Yeah, I don't see anything. The chat must have updated ever since, but there's nothing in the live chat with your name on it. I'm using the Control F3 function, so it would just, well, you know what? My computer's kind of lagging, and so is my YouTube right now. So let me just refresh this and hope it doesn't crash my computer. And in the meanwhile, we'll try to find your question here, hopefully. Again, for those of you who are joining us this wonderful Thursday night, again, if you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button down below. It is greatly appreciated. Continue to support the channel in that regard. Thank you. All right, Roy. Yeah, I don't see anything besides your super chat. So if you can type in a message, that'd be greatly appreciated. We move on to Brian Colorado, who says, I'm 6-2 on a on a 6-week winning streak, okay, with DK Metcalf, Chase, Devontae, Keon, Kyron, Montgomery, Jacobs, Rico, with Bowers, Jordan Love, Geno, and Russ. Is this luck or due to Andrew's rankings? I mean, probably luck. Because my rankings, I will tell you, listen, I'm not accurate all the time. You know that, guys. There are weeks where I will rank Marvin Harrison far too low for my own good, and it will bite me in the ass. There are weeks that I will rank Jonathan Taylor way too low for my own good, and he will bite me in the ass. And that, it is what it is. It's just the way that I would play it, and I wouldn't change anything. All the research I do, I kind of leads me in that direction. But hey, I'm glad to hear that you're on a 6-game winning streak. I'm going to honestly say the reality is you'd probably drafted, I mean, looking at your team, it's a good team. Just weeks 1 and 2 of the 2024 season they were trashy. The weeks were the 4th and 5th week of the preseason. Players just weren't scoring a lot of points. I mean, again, we talked about it back in week 1. It was the lowest scoring week 1 in like the last 20 years of the NFL. It was ridiculous. Anyway, continuing on, we had a question that came in from JKDKJK, who says, good evening. I have 3 tight ends. I need to drop one in a half PPR. Mark Andrews, Kraft, Kincaid. Okay, so between the 3 of them, I'm going to drop Kincaid easily in a half PPR. Next question. And I benched CJ, thankfully. Stream Bo Nix or Matthew Stafford this week. If you're playing in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, I'm comfortable with either of the two. I just prefer Bo Nix because of the rushing upside he provides in the circumstance, on top of the fact that they're taking on Baltimore secondary that has played terribly this season. Appreciate it. Derek Doug says, questions in the chat. All right, thank you, Derek. Let me go ahead and see. Okay, I see your question. It says, I dropped Mason for Jonathan Brooks because I have Christian McCaffrey presumably returning next week. Do you think I will regret dropping Mason? No, as long as you pick up Isaac Guerendo, I think you'll be fine. Look, think about it this way. I mentioned this earlier this week. Maybe, Derek, you weren't around in which I explained this. Or Dirk. Sorry, Dirk Doug, not Derek. Dirk Doug. My apologies. So here's the thing. Jordan Mason's shoulder injury that has sustained 2 specific games in the last 4 weeks that unfortunately he has been hit and he has not returned to the game. There have been 2 times that has occurred. That is an issue. If we are going to have to start Jordan Mason, for example, next week against Tampa Bay, I don't trust him at all. I would not rank him in my top 24 because I cannot trust that he can complete an entire game fully healthy, get injured, and if he gets injured in the first quarter, second quarter, he's not coming back, just like he did the other night against the Dallas Cowboys, just like he did all those weeks ago. I think it was against, if I'm not mistaken, it was against Seattle, perhaps, in which he had like 60 rushing yards in the first half and then disappeared in the second half, had the first rushing attempt in the second half and then never played again. I just can't trust to play him. Therefore, I just don't want him on my roster as of right now because he's not really a handcuff because you don't know if he's going to actually be able to sustain the damage of playing running back. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Roy Shaver. Let's see if Roy had sent that in. Roy. There you go. Roy says, I'm 5-3 and I'm currently in 4th place in my 10-team half PPR league. Drop anyone to grab ETN off of the waivers. Start 2 running backs are JT Montgomery, Najee, and Dowdle. We have start 3 wide receivers with Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, DJ, Waddle, Ladd, and Dobbs. Okay, so considering the running back depth you currently have on roster, I don't think you need ETN. And considering the wide receiver depth you have, okay, so here's the thing. The question you kind of have to ask yourself is, are you ever going to be in a situation where you would outright play Romeo Dobbs over Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, or Waddle? If the answer is no, then you can technically take a shot for ETN and see if he does anything. But quite frankly, I think that backfield is already a foregone conclusion to be a split backfield. A lot of the overall touches in the vast majority going towards Tank Bigsby henceforth. So really, I don't feel like you have to pick him up. I don't think it is someone that honestly you'll play over JT Montgomery ever, or even Najee Harris henceforth. I don't think you'll ever play him over those options in a half PPR rest of the way. Perhaps you'll play him over Dowdle, but that's under the assumption that your players are on a bye week and missing time. Montgomery's already passed his bye. Najee's already passed his bye, or he's going on bye this week. So I guess theoretically, if you want to play ETN this week over at Dowdle, which again, I wouldn't suggest, you could make that swap for Dobbs, but that, as of right now, I'm probably not so excited about it. So I just wouldn't even make a move in that circumstance. Thank you. All right, we had a question that came in from Subtay, who says, who should I start in the flex, Worthy or Zay? Okay, as of right now, I'd much rather play Zay Flowers. Assuming that's Zay Flowers, and it's not like Zay Jones or something like that. But yeah, Zay Flowers would be the preferred. Next question, Bears defense or Eagles defense? As of right now, via my Patreon rankings, I have the Eagles defense at 6 and the Bears at 13. So I'm going to lean towards playing the Eagles defense, taking on, of course, look, the Eagles, their defense will look good if their offense forces them into situations in which their secondary can sit back in zone and their pass rush can just get after opposing quarterbacks and feast, just like last week against Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, luckily for this week, they have a pretty good matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is a slow starting offense, and if they're not able to figure it out in the first half, they should be able to find themselves a lot of success in the second as a defense. Horizon Fios says, in a half PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 1 tight end league, my quarterbacks are Stafford and Dak, Tua. Running backs are Cook, Dobbins, Chase Brown. My wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Marvin Harrison, Shakir, Addison, Waddle, Hawkinson or Henry at the tight end position. Any help? And I need help with kicker. Okay, so look, as of kicker rankings right now for this week, not including Kaimi Fairbairn, who just played already. So it would be like Justin Tucker, Austin Seibert, Younghoe Koo, Brandon Aubrey, Will Reichard, Harrison Butker, Matt Gay, Jake Bates, Cameron Dicker, Cairo Santos, Blake Grupe. If those are available, those would be pretty good options in terms of your kicker. As for your current starting lineup, again, I'm playing Stafford at quarterback. Cook and Dobbins are pretty much solidified RB1 and 2. CeeDee Lamb has to play alongside of Marvin Harrison. You're probably going to have to start Shakir or Chase Brown in the flex. Let me see who I have ranked higher in a half PPR. Let's go to half PPR rankings. Chase Brown. Chase Brown is there, and he is, where is Khalil Shakir? He is ahead of Khalil Shakir, so Chase Brown will be your flex, and then between the 2 tight ends, Hawkinson and Henry, I'd rather play Hawkinson, especially considering the concussion protocol that Drake May is in. So that's the way that I go about it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Horizon. Jeremiah Mendoza sends in a question. Jeremiah says, I traded Kupp and Wilson and Stevenson and got Breece Hall, Olave, Tracy. My team is Love, Connor, Chase Brown. Man, this trade is going to be rough after tonight, huh? Chase Brown, D-Hop, Waddle, Dowdle, Njoku, and Amon-Ra. I'm 2-6 currently. Traded away Kupp, Wilson, and Stevenson for Breece, Olave, Tracy. The Tracy part is tough because he's not even going to play this week. Breece Hall kind of killed you this week. Wilson went off. Puka Nakua's injury gives Kupp even more value, but again, he is very similar value to Olave. It's not a big deal. Yeah, it's just unfortunate how the week has begun thus far, and hopefully you can kind of turn it around for the rest of the way here and kind of lead you to the promised land. Obviously, you're playing Love if he's active. Otherwise, you should be looking to potentially pick up another quarterback if, in fact, he's going to miss this week. Let's see here. Fitzpatrick sends in a question. Where's your question in the chat? Let's see if I can find it, Fitz. All right, Fitz says, hi, Andrew. My team is currently Kyler Murray, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Kyron Williams, Devon Achane, Joe Mixon, TJ Hawkinson, Devontae Adams, what is that? Kate Otten, Jalen Waddle, Nick Chubb, and Pacheco. Could you suggest a trade for Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel? You want to trade for Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. Understood. So in order to get players of that caliber, you're going to have to give away really, really valuable running back and a wide receiver value in exchange for it. So the way that I would see it is like you could probably give away Joe Mixon and Devontae Adams as a combo and potentially get that in return because, again, Joe Mixon's been one of the best, if not the best running back over the course of this season in terms of a per-game average. Obviously had himself another great performance tonight. If it wasn't for the fact that the offense was really slow in the second half, weren't able to put things together, and the defense kind of fell apart, he would have had an even bigger game based on his first half contributions. I think, what did he have? Like almost 14, 15 fantasy points in just the first half alone. Ridiculous numbers. But I think that could get the job done. Like a Mixon plus Devontae Adams. I don't want to give away Garrett Wilson. I don't want to give away Jamar Chase for Deebo. I don't think those values are equivalent, but you're giving a stud running back for a stud running back. You're respecting that value. And then you're also giving a wide receiver like Devontae Adams who has upside in exchange for Deebo, which again, Deebo and his injury history and all that kind of jazz, still already dealing with a rib injury that he just sustained the other day. So I think that's a relatively fair trade in my mind. If they would want like a Devon Achane instead of Mixon, and they'll take Adams and Achane, then sure, I'm okay with that as well. Fitzpatrick, send those over to see if they're interested. Of course, if that's something that you're interested in as well. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Lulu11, who says, "I was offered Jacobs for Swift. Interesting. Is this a good trade? I play in a half PPR scoring format. Look, in terms of rest of season, let me look at the upcoming schedule for the Packers here." Let's see. How do the Packers look in terms of upcoming schedule? Actually, you know what I want to reference to? Let me go pull up my rest of season strength of schedule at the running back position. So if we go look at ROS, here we go. And then we look at okay. So in terms of rest of season value, why is this so crooked? Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and filter this accordingly to subject it to like this. Let's go. What do I want? I want weeks 8 through 14, probably, just to be safe. Rest of the way going forward, the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers have pretty much identical upcoming. Yeah, the schedules are nearly identical. Which of the two would I prefer? I'd prefer to have Josh Jacobs. The reason why I feel so strongly about that is because when I look at DeAndre Swift, and even the way I talk about DeAndre Swift every single week, the issue is the organization does not trust to give him the ball on the goal line. That in itself is inherently dangerous for any running back, especially one that is as capable of scoring as many points as Swift has as of late. The fact that they'd rather kind of pivot to handing off a ball to an offensive lineman, which will fumble on the 1 yard line last week against the Washington Commanders, or they prefer to hand the ball off to Roschon Johnson, who has scored 4 rushing touchdowns in the last 5 games for this offense. That in itself is inherently scary. So I'm going to continue to approach this situation with, listen, I'd much rather have Josh Jacobs going forward in this circumstance. All right, let's see here. Give me a second. Thank you, Lulu. Appreciate it. The heck was that? Okay, cool. Moving on. We had Chris Owens with a question. Chris, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's see here, Chris. Your question is the following. Can it be presumed that Justin Fields is going to collect dust on my bench for the rest of the season? Yes, correct. He is not going to play for the rest of the season unless Russell Wilson sustains an injury. Wondering if I should drop him for... Yes, you should. Some of the top quarterbacks on the waiver are Bo Nix and Tua. You should pick up Bo Nix immediately. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Jacob Coles sends in a question. Nothing attached to it, Jacob. Let me go ahead and see if I can find it in the chat. Jacob Coles. I see it. It says I'm currently 5-3 in a full PPR. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex. So there's no tight ends in this league. Understood. So your team consists of Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, Reed, Devontae Smith, Pickens, Waddle, Juju, Achane, Dowdle, Kraft, Taysom Hill. It says, would Reed/Waddle be too much for Nico Collins? Considering your wide receiver room, I would say no. Considering you'll still have CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, and George Pickens still available on your team, then you add on top of it Nico Collins, I don't think it's too much. I think you're perfectly fine making a trade of that caliber as of this current moment in time, especially considering what Nico Collins will be once he's back next week and going forward. Jacob, thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. My YouTube's about to crash any second now, so maybe I refresh it just in... Do I do it? Okay. Alan sends in a question. Alan, thank you very much. As I gave DeAndre Swift plus Deontay Johnson for Breece Hall and JSN. Is that a win? I don't like JSN as a potential trade, like kind of someone that I'm going after in upcoming trades. It's not something that I'm too interested in. In the long run, yes, I prefer Breece Hall over DeAndre Swift. As for JSN versus Deontay Johnson, I'm very much so indifferent about it, but I'll say that you win the trade in this circumstance because I prefer the running back in the overall equation. Thomas Dabney sends in something, nothing attached to it. Thomas says, okay, I found it. There you go. Says, okay, just got cooked with Garrett on my bench. I have Josh Allen, Joe Mixon, Achane, Jamar, Neighbors, Pitts, Kupp, Olave. I mean, it makes sense. You have a lot of really good receivers, bro. So leaving them on your bench wasn't really out of the realm of possibility considering you have technically 5 top 15 wide receivers, right? So it's kind of the blessing and the curse that you unfortunately have to deal with, Thomas. Do I just let this lineup ride for this week? I mean, look, if you're starting Mixon, Achane, Jamar, Neighbors, Pitts, Kupp, Olave as your 2 flex options, yeah, I mean, you're fine with that situation. There's nothing really to change in that circumstance. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from DKJK, who says, CJ and Dak Prescott for rest of season, their schedules seem sweet. Yeah, I'd rather just have CJ Stroud. I don't really trust Dak Prescott. What has he thrown? 2 interceptions each of the last 3 games? He's just a turnover machine, which is definitely not going to help in this circumstance. Tom Foolery sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Let me see if I can find you in the live chat, Tom. Tom Foolery, can I find you in the live chat? Tom Foolery says, in a full PPR flex, Pollard, Chase Brown, Rashad White, Evan Ingram, or Cortland Sutton. Out of those available options, I would rank them in terms of Pollard number 1, Evan Ingram 2, Cortland Sutton 3, Chase Brown 4, Rashad White 5. But Pollard is 1 and Evan Ingram is 2. If you have 2 available spots, that's the 2 that I would play within my lineup this weekend. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. The next question comes in from, assuming I don't, you know what? I need to close all these tabs. I don't need them all open. It's just lagging my Google Chrome. All right. Jay Spear sends in a question. Jay Spear says, full PPR, start 1 wide receiver and 2 flex. We have Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison, Xavier Worthy, Tyrone Tracy, if he plays, Jonathan Brooks, if he plays. Okay. So of the available that you do have, the way that I would start this lineup, under the assumption that everyone is fully healthy, Jay Spear, you're playing Jacoby Myers, Ramondre Stevenson, and Tyrone Tracy. Now, under the assumption that Tyrone Tracy does not play this week with the concussion protocol, you would fill in his spot with Xavier Worthy, and you would go Myers, Ramondre, Worthy. So basically, you are pivoting from Tracy to Worthy. Otherwise, it is Myers and Ramondre as the confirmed 1 and 2 options within the upcoming week. Thank you. Anvesh says, hey, I sent my question earlier in the chat. Let's see here. Anvesh, where art thou? Says, I got offered Singletary, Keon Coleman, Laporta for my Swift, Mooney. In a full PPR, my running backs consist of Jacobs, Tyrone, Tracy, Junior, Bigsby, My wide receivers are Chase, Adams, Leggett, and Henry is my tight end. Oops, and there goes my YouTube, just crashed again. Just going to refresh it one moment. Let me go back up to that. Hopefully it'll still be in the live chat. Okay, it is. Should I take this or counter? I don't want to give up Swift. I don't think you should give up Swift either. You're not getting back anything in this trade. You're literally just getting back Laporta. I would not make this trade. I'd rather start Hunter Henry, or I'd rather make a deal in which you are actually getting back a significantly better tight end option than Laporta. Like if someone was going to give you Kyle Pitts, or someone was going to give you Bowers, I don't know, a Kittle, a Kelsey, somebody of that elite nature, even an Evan Ingram, I don't even care. In a full PPR, there's so much value to be had with Evan Ingram going forward. Like that would make it so much better. But you get Singletary, which does nothing for you. Obviously, it fills in for Tyrone Tracy, but you lose a running back for the rest of the season, so you don't really get anything in terms of long-term value in return. Mooney for Coleman could be argued those are similar valued players, and then you get the off-put Laporta, which again, because of the volatility at tight end, it's not worth it. So if you're going to counter this trade, I mean, ultimately they're going to have to give you back. Like, forget Keon Coleman, forget Singletary. We want Laporta plus a running back. That's how we want to go about this, and it cannot be a Singletary-esque player. It's got to be a startable player. Otherwise, it has to be a startable wide receiver outright, and a good one at that. All right, let's see here. Scrolling down, we had a question that came in from Jeremiah Mendoza, who says, would you suggest any trades or moves to make based on my team? In the past, question to potentially make the playoffs. Okay, got it. In the past question. Okay, so let's see here. If we go to Mendoza's question here. All right, I need to actually open this up just so I can find it. So when I look at your team, so you traded Cup and Wilson for Stevenson and Stevenson for Brees. Okay. So you have Love, Connor, Brees Hall now, Chase Brown, D Hop, Olave, Waddle, Dowdle, Njoku, Amon-Ra. I mean, look, in this circumstance, you can try to 2-for-1 a bunch of things, but like, okay, so when I look at this team as just on paper, Brees Hall, James Conner, those are your 1-2 starters rest of the way. Unless you were going to significantly improve them by taking like James Conner and adding, let's say, for example, Chase Brown next to him and sending both those running backs for one superior running back, you send them both for a Jonathan Taylor. I don't know, I'm just throwing out a name. Unless you make a trade of that kind of nature, you'd have to have that as your 1-2 combo, and you would want to keep either Tyrone Tracy or Chase Brown as your RB3 once bye weeks arise. Because again, those teams haven't faced their bye weeks and eventually will have to, and you'll need the depth in order to kind of fill in for them. As for wide receiver, you have Olave, you have Waddle, you have you have D-Hop. As of right now, again, very similar. You don't have enough depth to move. You have Amon-Ra, which again, Amon-Ra and Olave are your 1-2 starters. Until Waddle and Hopkins do something, they are not pivotable. And on top of it, really, they're not even tradable unless they do something. So really, your only trade measure is like taking Dowdle if he has a good week, Waddle, D-Hop if they have great weeks, and potentially moving them after this, this upcoming matchup. Because as it currently stands, if you were to try to move these players, it would be very difficult to get back an upgrade in comparison to where they could potentially end up being 1 week from now. So I'm honestly going to suggest you just hold and sit in this position until these players perform. And if they do not, then that's what you have to kind of deal with. Because if you were to try to trade away Waddle right now, like maybe you can get a DJ Moore in return, but who's to say that it's a better option in the given week, much less a week from now? Or enough of a significant upgrade to where it's like actually a meaningful trade. All right, let's see here. Harold sends in a question, says in a half PPR, weak at wide receiver, already have Kamara plus Achane. Okay. Which should I do for AJ Brown plus Dowdle? Walker plus Murray, Walker plus Chase Brown, Walker plus Amari Cooper. Okay. So considering those are your running backs and you are willing to trade away Kenneth Walker, what combination would I be most comfortable giving away? It depends. If you're going to give away Walker and Murray, you better have another quarterback on roster. If you don't have another quarterback on roster, then obviously I'm not making that move. And at that point, I would then be moving Walker and probably, if you're already quote unquote weak at wide receiver, you don't want to be trading away Amari Cooper. So really what you should do is just trade away Walker and Murray and just hope that you have another quarterback on roster or someone to pick up off waivers. I think that's probably the best approach at this current moment in time. Outside of that, I guess you could get away with the Walker and Chase Brown trade, but honestly, I'd rather just keep in this circumstance or go for a different type of trade because the Dowdle prospect of that doesn't really excite me. So I'd rather just give away Walker and Murray in this circumstance and keep Chase Brown. Thank you. Kamikaze says, Andrew, rank these running backs rest of the season. Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, Hubbard, Bucky Irving. Got it. Rest of season, the way that I currently have it is Brian Robinson 1, Chase Brown 2, Bucky Irving 3, Chuba Hubbard 4. Thank you. Ryan Thompson says, I play in a 3 wide receiver league. I have Neighbors, St. Brown, Metcalf, Connor, Gibbs. Was offered Lamb and Aaron Jones for Gibbs and St. Brown. Understood. Should I accept it? I probably say no. I'd probably keep it as is. Look, the lack of upside that we saw last week from Amon-Ra was because of a blowout. When I look at the upcoming schedule for the Lions here, looking at their games, right? They have to take on Green Bay this week, competitive game. With Nico Collins returning next week, Texans should be a competitive game. Then they have the Jaguars, could be a blowout. Colts should be competitive with Flacco there. The Bears, which again is always competitive. Then the Green Bay Packers again should be competitive once again. And then they have the Bills, and then they have the Chicago Bears again, and then they have the 49ers. So again, the upcoming schedule is relatively competitive enough to where I'm very comfortable keeping those two on the Lions henceforth. If you feel like you want out on St. Brown for some reason, then I guess you can try to make technically it will be an upgrade going to Lamb, but I think it is an essential downgrade going from Aaron Jones to Gibbs, which is why I'd rather just keep the Gibbs and St. Brown side of this overall conversation, because even though all 4 players are past their bye weeks and you don't have to worry about that, that's the side I just feel a little bit more comfortable with in the long term. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. We move on to Cinco2X, who says, check the comments, please. Okay, let me go ahead and find it. Cinco says, I need defensive. Okay, need a defensive. I'm just blind. Have Pittsburgh drop who? My bench consists of Kyle Pitts, Brian Thomas Jr., Cortland Sutton, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson. I also have Hawkinson in the IR spot. Need to take off, okay, IR, with Pitts and Njoku on my squad. Okay, so considering you have Pitts and Njoku, the way you can go about this is either you have to drop 2 players to pick up 1, or you just leave it as is and you just tank having no defense this week and try to win without a defense. Those are your literal 2 options. If you have to drop 2 players in order to pick up 1 defense, in order to hold on to Pittsburgh rest of the way, you technically, considering you have Pitts and Njoku, you'd have to drop Hawkinson and you'd have to drop Nick Chubb. Those would be the 2 that you drop. That would be my suggestion as of right now, unless you want to tank it with no defense this week. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Roy Powell, who says, in a full PPR, played against Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Marvin Harrison, Reed, and Higgins. Start 2. Okay. So out of those available, again, with the Puka Nacua information, Kupp becomes even more solidified as a potential prospect this week alongside of him. Considering we don't know the current status of Higgins, we're probably going to see him miss another consecutive week. I'm going to lean towards Marvin Harrison as the number 2 there, considering, Reed with, maybe if we get more information regarding Jordan Love this week, I can change my mind and maybe play Reed there. But for right now, we'll lean towards Marvin Harrison with Kupp. As for your next question, also, with Njoku in my lineup, should I trade Hawkinson for Downs? Yeah, I would be. Yeah, I'd be very comfortable doing that. Sounds good to me. And honestly, if you do that, I'd play Kupp and Downs this week in this full PPR format, Roy. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we scroll down. We had a question from Mendoza once again. Says, sorry, my full team is Love, Amon-Ra, Olave, Keon Coleman, Hopkins, Waddle. Let's see here. Brees, Connor, White, Irving, Rico, Tracy, Kraft, Njoku. Is there any moves? Even like I just kind of went through. Amon-Ra, Olave, you're not moving from. So unless Keon Coleman is tradable and someone wants to take Keon Coleman plus Hopkins or Keon Coleman for Waddle to give you an upgraded wide receiver, that's the only pieces you're theoretically moving there. Unless someone wants to give you an upgrade, like if they want to give you, again, like I mentioned, if someone wants to take, again, no one's going to take Rachaad White or Irving off your hands separately. You'd have to give a 2 for 1, so you're not going to give that up. Considering Kraft and Tracy look, at this point, Jeremiah, you can't move. Unless, again, you are going to 2 for 1. Send somebody 2 players for 1 in exchange, and somebody wants, for example, your non-starters, Keon Coleman, Hopkins, Waddle, Irving, White, Rico, maybe Kraft. Unless somebody wants that, you want to keep your main studs. Because, again, Olave, Amon-Ra, Brees, and Connor have to be your pillars of your team. And unless you're using one of those players, like taking Connor and taking, let's say, Rachaad White, and you 2 for 1 and you go after a superior running back in comparison, like a Jonathan Taylor, unless somebody's willing to give you something of that nature, very seldom are you going to be able to make a trade to where it's immediately going to impact your team positively, unless you are looking towards the future. And considering your record isn't in the greatest spot, you can't be investing in Nico Collins. You can't be investing in the future of Mike Evans, Pacheco's of the world. You have to find value now, which, again, unless you're 2 for 1-ing, you're not going to find. Okay, I do appreciate y'all coming through again. Tomorrow, we will have our Hidden Gems video. Tomorrow night, I'll be live on the channel starting at 7 p.m. PST as well. Saturday morning, I will be live streaming here on the channel starting at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It will be a rare it's a once in a season kind of situation where the live stream on Saturday will not be in the afternoon. Typically, it's 1 to 3 p.m. This time around, it'll be from 10 to 11 a.m. Just 1 hour, short, quick, clean, very easy overall play within Saturday's stream. But on Sunday morning, I will be back starting at 7 a.m. PST, answering questions for 3 straight hours with rankings on screen. Gerardo says, I put the parlay in with receptions with Adams and Dell. Thanks, no problem. Listen, we're trying to continue to build the momentum there. Yeah, earlier today it went well. Obviously, this one is starting to build. Devontae Adams, Tank Dell, they both hit. If you guys didn't get to put this in and didn't see the video from earlier today in which I suggested it, obviously you could potentially still get, and take advantage of Ferguson and Devon Achane in these categories. I also had this play that hit. This wasn't suggested on the channel, but this is something that I put in myself, and obviously this one was beautiful. Mixon's been a stud, so again, if I'm going to have him as my number one running back in the given week in terms of my rankings, I'm going to play him at a pretty high level. 79 rushing yards was easy. Tank Dell, again, there's no one else to throw to. Garrett Wilson, 100-plus yards in what? I think it was 3 of the last 4 games. He got himself 90. 61.5 was a cakewalk. And Aaron Rodgers had thrown 2 or more passing touchdowns in, I think 5 of the last 6 games. So it was pretty much like an easy auto hit there, but kind of building momentum, building back the overall profile as we progress here. Justin Cohen sends in a question. Thank you, Justin. Justin says, PPR pick 2, JSN, Shakir, DJ Moore. As of right now, if DK Metcalf is out, I will take JSN and Shakir. If DK Metcalf is back in this week, then at that point I will play Shakir and DJ Moore. Thank you. Let's see here. Andrew Meng sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, good afternoon from Taiwan. Okay, how about that? Start 1 in a full PPR. Ladd McConkey, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, or JSN. Keep in mind, I'm also starting HN. Got it. So look, as of this current moment in time, the way that I'd go about starting this roster, Andrew, is if in fact we have DK Metcalf confirmed to be out this weekend, JSN will be the highest ranked player. If not the case, in a full PPR, at that point, I will pivot to playing Ladd McConkey against the Cleveland Browns. Thank you. Let's see here. Meza sends in a question. Says, hi, Andrew. I have Cousins and Tua, but someone dropped Jordan Love on the waivers. Perfect. Do I drop one of them to pick him up? Yes, you would drop Tua Tagovailoa and you would pick him up. Thank you. That'd be perfect, actually. CS Derek 13 says, just lost Diggs, so scrambling to make the best lineup possible. Start 2 from running back and flex. Full PPR. Pollard, McConkey, White, Chase Brown, Chubb. Thanks. As of all these players, if I'm starting 2 running backs, and I don't know if it's 1 or 2 flex, but I'm just going to rank them in order from best to worst as to how I have it currently stacked up, Derek. The way that I'd go about it would be number 1, Tony Pollard. Number 2, Chase Brown. 3 McConkey, 4 Rashad White, 5 Chubb. Excuse me. So basically, if you can start 3 players, it would be Pollard, Brown, and McConkey. If you can start 4 players, it would be Pollard, McConkey, Brown, and White. Chubb is always going to be benched in this scenario, considering the full PPR format. Constantino says, in a full PPR, I left Dell on the waivers to hold Downs and D-Hop. Huge mistake. I mean, look, going forward, Dell without Stephon Diggs should be the Dell of last year, right? And what was the Dell of last year besides a guy that was like 13 plus fantasy points per game and a half PPR, 15 plus in a full PPR? So now that he's the solidified number 2 with Nico Collins coming back next week, like I would have said he's more valuable than Hopkins rest of the way. Jimmy says, thank you for the Adam start. I wasn't sure. No problem, Jimmy. Listen, the only reason that the Adam start went as well as it did is because I sacrificed. Again, if you go back to Wednesday's video, I specifically said, guys, I have a feeling that he is going to play well today or this week. And because of that, I'm going to do you all a favor. I'm going to bench him in my own league. And then because I benched him in my own league, you will all prosper from his fantasy points, and you all did. Alfredo says, if I package Connor and Myers, what running back is a possible target? Let's see here. If we pack, okay, so Myers, again, is relatively high-valued wide receiver. Again, he could be very easily in a full PPR, be like a 15-point guy every week. He could be. Now, obviously, that's his potential. As to whether the execution is there, we'll have to wait and see. I would hope that maybe, just throwing it out there. Look, Connor's valuable enough to where I'm like not trading this for a Montgomery. Like I'm trying to trade this for like a Kenneth Walker, a James Cook, a Alvin Kamara, something of that, a Breece Hall. Those are the kind of players that I'd have to go after, Jonathan Taylor. Unless someone's giving me something of that extent, I mean, really, I'm not moving it. So unless someone's giving me a top tier option at like Henry, Kamara, Barkley, Robinson, Hall, Gibbs, Kyron, Mixon, Cook, Walker, Jacobs, unless somebody like that is coming back to me in exchange for this deal, Achane, that would be it. Because making a trade like this for like a Swift or making a trade like this for Aaron Jones, I feel like Connor, Swift, Jones, they're very similar in terms of their potential value going forward. It wouldn't make sense to slightly maybe upgrade, even if it is an upgrade, maybe slightly do so by giving away Myers, which can, kind of help you out rest of the way here. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Anonymous. Says, Andrew, where's your costume? My costume is on. You don't see it? I am portraying no, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say something, but I think it's no. I'm just gonna keep that to myself. It's a joke, but it's a sad joke. So I don't want to say a sad joke. Not right now. Thank you, Adam. Okay. Let's do that. CS Derek says, sorry, correction. I need 2 running backs. Sorry, I need running back and 2 flex, including Chuba. Got it. It's not Chubb. Understood. So you need a running back and 2 flex. So the Pollard is your running back. Your 2 flex at that point would be in a full PPR. Let me just reference my rankings on Patreon just so that we don't even have a question about it. Let's go here. Let's go full PPR. All right. So what do I have? McConkey. So McConkey is there. In comparison, he's ahead of Chuba Hubbard, so that's for sure. And then where art thou, other running backs? Let's see. Chase Brown's there. Where is Rashad White? Okay. So if it's Chuba Hubbard in this circumstance, Derek, you would play Pollard, McConkey, and Chuba Hubbard. Those would be the 3 that I'd feel most comfortable with this week. All right. Andrew's dressed up as the GOAT. All right, dude. All right, good. That's a good one, Onage. That's a good one. I'll keep that in mind for next year when somebody asks me. Mr. Nice Guy says, yep. Okay, very well. Thank you, Nice Guy. Alfredo, have a good night, my man. Who are some waiver wire targets for week 9? I mean, Cedric Tillman still available. Elijah Moore still available. If those guys are potentially still available, I think that is something that you might want to explore. Adam Thielen, maybe. Xavier Legette. Those could potentially be available. If they're not, again, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe what waivers already ran in your circumstance. Jimmy Castillo says, should I start Dobbs or Myers or Hopkins? Or Njoku, a wide receiver 2 and 5. Okay, so of the available you have here, Jimmy Castillo, Myers and Njoku are the guys that I want to play. Now, I could eventually be convinced to play Dobbs over Njoku in the event that Jordan Love is 100% active. But again, even with the risk of his re-injury, I think I'm still going to stick with Myers and Njoku as the 1-2 combo, with Dobbs as our number 3 option and Hopkins as our number 4 there. Crispy says, should I trade Garrett Wilson for James Conner? No. If you're playing in a full PPR, Garrett Wilson has more inherent baseline value. Unless you're super desperate for a running back and have an abundance of wide receiver talent on your team, I wouldn't make that move. Let's see here. Coax says, this is my first year playing fantasy and your videos are helping. I'm glad that I can help in any way. I'm sure I'm going to lead you astray sometimes, but I'm glad I can help and made the season enjoyable so far. And hopefully we can get you to the playoffs and maybe bring home a chip. CS Derek sends in a question. Says, correction. Okay, yeah, we already took care of that one. Thank you, CS Derek. Okay, that's what I was planning on, but I needed confirmation. No problem. Glad to hear it. Schnabel says, full PPR flex, Reed, Coleman, Leggett, Eckler. I mean, Reed has to play if Jordan Love is in your lineup. Outside of, yeah, that would be it. If not, then you just pivot to playing Coleman this weekend. Roy Powell says, follow up. Any worries about Njoku getting traded? Also, no, not really. I mean, he is their offense. Now, if he was going to be traded, you have to think about it this way. Which team is going into the potential playoff hunt that still needs a top-tier tight end and is heavily already utilizing the tight end kind of position on their roster? Unless he gets traded to like the Chiefs, right? And they want to like really go all out for the future, which, I mean, that would be chef's kiss. Would absolutely love it for Mahomes' value going forward and Njoku. But unless something like that happens, really, where is he going to go? Who wants a tight end? That's the thing. Who needs a tight end? I mean, there haven't been any like serious injuries. Maybe if Dallas Goedert's hamstring isn't getting healthy, but I mean, Dallas Goedert's contract is not cheap. Tight ends are typically getting like $10 million a year. So unless a team is like in desperate need of a tight end, I don't think he gets moved. Now, as for your next question here, with Njoku and then you say, also the team I'd be trading to, I play next week with Njoku on bye and waivers. Oh goodness, my YouTube just crashed. Apologies. Let me just go ahead and refresh that. Okay. Follow up. Any worries about Njoku getting traded? Also, the team I'd be trading to, I play next week with Njoku on bye and waivers are thin. Does this change anything? Does this change anything in terms of the grand scheme of your question? Considering the bye week next week, it's probably in your best interest to hold. Yeah, that's fine. You can hold it. Obviously, I'd like to get downs now, but considering the bye week next week, if your record still needs you to really have a lot of consistency going forward, then I'd be okay with it. You just keep it as is. All right, let's see here. Coast to Coast says, hey, Andrew, in a 12-team full PPR, you think I could snag Christian McCaffrey for Wilson and Javonte? Fair trade, or is it a fleece? It's a fleece. You would fleece them. Am I good with you going for it? Yeah, go for it. Get Christian McCaffrey, but it's a fleece. No two ways about it. That's a fleece. Let's see here. Khan sends in a question, says, trade Lad for Ingram/Mahomes. Yeah, I'd love to have Ingram. I'd trade him 1-for-1. I don't even need to have Mahomes. If I can get Ingram going forward, I'd be very happy with that. Absolutely. Constantino says he's dressed up as Andrew motherfucking. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, there you go. I appreciate that. Steve says Chase Brown, J.K. Dobbins, Reed, or Marvin Harrison. What's your format, Steve? Half PPR, full PPR, standard, point per first down? Like, what's the dealio with that league? Crispy says, you think ETN gets traded? No, I don't think so. Again, he's on a rookie deal, so that it makes him a little bit more pliable with a 50-year, extension and all that kind of jazz. But because he's the first-round pick, but I don't think he does. He probably won't be traded because of the injury, and I don't think he's even close to returning. Even though he could return this week, I don't think that they have any plans to potentially move him in this circumstance. Anonymous says in a half PPR pick 2, DJ Moore, Romeo Doubs, Mooney, and BTJ. As of right now, if we can get a clear confirmation that Jordan Love is playing, Dobbs and BTJ are my starters. If, in fact, Jordan Love unfortunately misses this week, at that point, you would play Moore and BTJ. Thank you. Mayfield or Knicks this week, I have no issue if you want to play Mayfield. He is a fucking elite quarterback. It is ridiculous how well he can play regardless of what surrounds him. As long as he is in that Tampa Bay offense, he looks great. I prefer Knicks this week, but I still have Mayfield, at least in terms of today's video that I posted on the channel, quarterback and tight end rankings. I still have Mayfield in my top 16. At least I think he's number 14, and I have Knicks way higher than him. But that's because of that rushing upside and the matchup in itself. Njoku to the Chargers would be fire. I mean, the Chargers are going to have to... Okay, Njoku to the Chargers or Njoku to the... You want to hear it out? The Broncos. The Broncos could really do for a tight end, especially with Sean Payton and his history with, Jimmy Graham. I mean, imagine, huh? Imagine. Both those teams winning records right now. What the Chargers are 4-3, the Denver Broncos 5-3, both making a push. It could happen. I mean, I was talking about the Chiefs. Within their own, AFC West, there could be some movement. You never know. But again, it would make sense for the Chargers because of Greg Roman. It would make a lot of sense. It would make sense for the Broncos because of course, Sean Payton. They don't really have any money tied up with tight end. Who do they have? They have Greg Dulcich, who's a rookie that they don't utilize, and then they have Adam Trotman. They don't have much money tied up there, which again, if they made the trade for that, I'd love to see it. All right, let's see here. Dante says, trade Downs for Debo. Absolutely, yeah. I'm very happy with that. Now, again, understand that I think this is a very equal trade in the long term. If Joe Flacco remains as the starting quarterback of this team, Downs should have very equal value to Debo going forward based on how much utilization Downs has gotten, especially in a full PPR. Half PPR, I think it's clearly a Debo take, but even in a full PPR, I'm very happy with this move, especially considering the Ayuk injury and the upside of Debo going forward, especially with McCaffrey coming back. That offense is going to be clicking on all cylinders. It'll give everyone an opportunity to score even more points within a given week. Let's see here. I was asking a question to Steve about his scoring format. Let's see if Steve responded in the chat. Steven, where are you at, Steven? Steven says, sorry about that. Full PPR. I need a flex between Chase Brown, J.K. Dobbins, Marvin Harrison, and Reed. Got it. So as of right now in a full PPR, I'd probably lean towards playing. As of right now, it's probably Marvin Harrison. The next best play at that point in a full PPR, I'd probably just go with J.K. Dobbins. Well, you know what? Considering the Cleveland matchup, I don't even like that as much. So then it's Chase Brown or Reed. If Jordan Love's active, we could go to Reed. Yeah, as of right now, it'll probably be the order of, let me just pull this up for my rankings. Yeah, as of right now, it would go Marvin Harrison 1, Reed 2 if Jordan Love's active, then Chase 3, Chase Brown, and then J.K. Dobbins 4. Mayfield or Matthew Stafford in a full PPR, says Roxanne. As of right now, I have Stafford ranked slightly higher than Mayfield, but that could change. If Puka Nakua's injury that he sustained earlier today at practice is significant enough to hold him out, I'm not going to have Stafford ahead of Mayfield. I'll swap it. I think that's how much of an impact, Puka Nacua has within that offense and the upside of Stafford. So we'll have to wait and see as to the status of him by tomorrow going into this weekend. So have them both on roster for sure, but if you need to pivot based on that information, we'll have to wait and see. Jesus says, just join the live stream. Thoughts on Garrett Wilson moving forward? I mean, again, he's still a top-tier wide receiver. He hasn't moved from the top tier of my conversation. Maybe others have kind of deemed him a lower value guy. Like I've told you guys, once Devontae Adams got traded, and watch what I'll continue to say, as long as Devontae Adams is on the other side of the field, it'll make Garrett Wilson's life that much easier. It makes the offense more potent. He has played incredibly well as of late. Did he have himself the highest upside of performance? Absolutely. Are we going to anticipate more performances like this in the future? Yes. But are there going to be weeks in which he doesn't score touchdowns? Of course. It's just the nature of the beast. He is still a top 15 wide receiver going forward. If you want to move him towards the top 10, you certainly can. It's just a matter of how you want to approach it regarding some of the other receiving options, whether they've passed their bye weeks, etc., and all that kind of jazz going forward, and the upcoming schedules for the fantasy playoffs. Let's see here. What Njoku with Bo Nix? ? Yuck. I'll take that. I don't care. It's not a matter. Look, if you look at Bo Nix and you think to yourself, that is not a great quarterback, for fantasy purposes, he's fantastic. For real life, he's only improving. You got to remember, it's his rookie year. It's the first 8 games of his career, and he's putting up the numbers that he has thus far. You take it with, take it in stride. Understand that it is a process of building the quarterback rather than him being a complete package after only 8 games, which he's not even close to being, but he's improving, certainly. What about dealing Tank Dell to get Aaron Jones? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be 100% happy with that. I need an RB2, and I don't know if ETN will play. Yeah, future generations, absolutely. Give me Aaron Jones rest of season. Very happily, actually. All right, let's see here. Posner, too, sends in a question. Nothing attached to it. Posner, where is your question anyway? Posner, do me a favor, type in the chat. Evan says, Andrew, I have to ask, how could you rank Baker so low in your rankings? His worst game is 9.8 versus Denver. Every other game, 20 plus. Yeah, the only reason I have him that low is because he plays the Chiefs. Just think about it that way. What have the Chiefs allowed to opposing quarterbacks, and what do they typically do when they play against top-tier teams? Like last week, they took the week off. You go see what they did to Brock Purdy. Go watch that game. They dismantled the 49ers. When the Chiefs want to show up, which they will against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week because it's a far more competitive team, they can dismantle any team that they want defensively. That is how elite they are across the board. So I still put the respect on Baker's name in terms of putting him in my top 14, but that's just the way that I would play him. I would prefer to play those other quarterbacks. Doesn't mean that he's going to score less or more. That's just the way that I would approach it based on how I've projected out in my projections model and how the matchup primarily kind of fears me away from it. But again, that's just the way I see it. My subjective opinion, on the matter. Crispy sends in a question, says, my team is quarterback 1 Stroud, running back J.K. Dobbins. Number 2, we have Walker. Wide receiver 1 is St. Brown. Wide receiver 2 is Wilson. Kyle Pitts, Olave, Etienne, Cooper, Jackson Smith, Kincaid, Tank, Charbonnet. WYT. What do you think? I mean, overall, once you get Nico Collins back, Stroud will be a better play. Dobbins, I don't love as your RB1. Obviously, Walker is more of your RB1. Dobbins is your RB2. In terms of only having Etienne as your primary kind of backup at running back does not give me much hope for the future. But again, it's kind of the situation you're in. You're not really having to trade as of right now. Wide receivers are very solid. Tight end is great. Really, it's just J.K. Dobbins. That is your X factor. If he shows up every week, then you're in a fantastic position. If he does not, then of course you will be subject to whatever he puts up, kind of dictating your success within a given week, unfortunately. Posner says, thoughts on Calvin Ridley going forward? As long as Will Levis is not the starting quarterback, I am perfectly fine with him. If at any point it is not Mason Rudolph out there, I am having a panic attack and I'm replacing Ridley and I'm putting him on my bench. I do not trust Will Levis at all in any circumstance. Let's see here. Tony Lopez says, in a super flex, my 2 quarterbacks are Dak and Flacco. I'm 5-3. You think I'm good? In a good shape. Goat. Dak and Flacco. I mean, what's the alternative, man? I mean, at this point, Dak Prescott's going to throw his 2 touchdowns, throw a couple picks, turn over the ball, but at least he'll throw his 2 touchdowns and be relevant there. Flacco's going to throw his 2 touchdowns and be fine. Like, they're going to be middle of the pack quarterbacks. They don't have as much rushing upside. They will have the occasional game in which maybe they throw 3 or 4 touchdowns, or maybe they run one in with their legs. But, they're just ordinary middle of the pack guys. They're not going to win you a week, and objectively, they're often not going to lose you a week. So they're just going to kind of sit in the middle, and and they'll get the job done. As long as the rest of your positions, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, have the elite level players alongside of them, you'll be fine. CS Derek, where was your question? It says, sorry, last one. Did you say Chuba or Chase Brown in the flex? It would be Chuba Hubbard over Chase Brown in a full PPR. All right, Stroobs says, what's up, Andrew? Happy Halloween. Need one for the flex. Reed, Mooney, Tillman. Out of those three, as of right now, I'd go with... Okay, I want to play Tillman. If Jordan Love is active, I probably play Reed. Then it'll go Tillman second, then it'll go Mooney third. Also, I'm carrying Mark Andrews, Kraft, and Laporta. Do I drop one? At this point, no, you try to trade one. I mean, you could theoretically drop one if everyone in your league has stud players. Like if I look across the league and someone's got Kelsey, Bowers, Kittle, Ingram, I don't know, Pitts, Ferguson, I mean, who else is a Otten? Like right there and there is just 8 tight ends already. And then you've got 3 of them on your team. There's probably got to be 1 or 2 teams in your league that doesn't have a stud tight end. There's got to be one. So if you could find that team and trade it to them before you end up dropping it, that'd be preferred as of the, kind of approach going forward. Chris Owen says, in a full PPR, Bengals defense or Chiefs defense this week? I prefer the Chiefs defense as of right now. As it currently stands, my Chiefs defense is, both these defenses I currently have ranked in the top 5. I just prefer the Chiefs. If we do not see T. Higgins out there, that is what would concern me. I think T. Higgins is so vital for the entire team. Like if T. Higgins is out there, the offense is going to score. If the offense is going to score, they're going to run out the clock in the second half. It'll give the Raiders less of an opportunity of coming back in the second half and pouring on any sort of points in garbage time. As for the Chiefs, I expect them to just completely come out and decimate teams of that caliber, as they've kind of demonstrated over the year. All right, guys, how long have we been here for? Hour and 9. All right, I think that's where we're going to hold it. Commanders or Chargers defense this week? Schnabel, I'm going to go with the Chargers defense this week. Thank you. Beaver, I'm going to answer your question. Lizzie, I'm going to answer your question. Then we're going to head out, okay? I do appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. Those will be the final questions. Also, I'll answer Ramblin' and Landon Ramirez, and then we're out of here, okay? I appreciate y'all. Let's get it. Beaver says, who do I flex? Full PPR. Reed, Dobbs, Chase Brown, Myers, or Keon Coleman. Out of those available in a full PPR, I think I'm just going to be very comfortable playing Jacoby Myers there or Dobbs. If Jordan Love is active, I'll just go with Dobbs. Otherwise, it is going to be pivoting in the direction of Myers. Then we move on to Lamb and Higgins in my starters. If Higgins is out, who else do I play? So yeah, it would be Dobbs if he flexes in, if Jordan Love is active. If he's not, then you would go with Myers there, and then you would flex Chase Brown. Got it? Thank you. Lizzie says, I'm currently 2.5 PPR. Tua, Jefferson, Adams, Taylor, Hunt, Andrews, Dobbs. Benches Rashad White, Anthony Richardson should be dropped. Harrison Jr., Eckler, Hawkinson, Kendre Miller should be dropped. Thielen, Jonathan Brooks, your opinion on how to get back on track? I mean, look, getting back on track requires a lot of things here. Primarily, we need a better quarterback. Second, after that, because again, you've been brutalized by, Anthony Richardson all year. 2 is not going to really suffice in this whole grand scheme. Jefferson, Adams, Taylor, Hunt is great for right now. Andrews, Dobbs, fine. Marvin Harrison, you might be able to utilize. If you're not going to start Marvin Harrison within a given week, which, again, I could understand it. Maybe you're just taking him and you're sending him off for a better quarterback. Go after a top 5 player. Maybe that's the way we approach this going forward. Because I don't think Tua is going to be able to pull it, especially this week against the Bills. I don't think that leads to a lot of success. Landon Ramirez says Coleman, Laporta, or Ramondre in the flex. Give me Ramondre there. Ramblin' Man says, I traded Rashad White and Hawkinson for Jaden Reed in a half PPR. Okay, very well. I needed wide receiver badly, and Otten is my tight end going forward. Thoughts? Yeah, I'm okay with it. Again, I don't know what the rest of your wide receiver depth looks like, but I'm going to assume that you were in a desperate enough need to where this is justifiable. So I'm going to trust that you've been around the channel for a long time, enough, Ramblin' Man, to understand the comparative values of players to where I'm sure you did perfectly fine in the trade. Again, Jaden Reed just needs a healthy Jordan Love. That's it, and he will be fine. Pipe Down says, Elijah Moore or Pop Douglas? Give me Elijah Moore. I'm done with Pop Douglas for a while here. Alrighty. Thank you, guys. Happy Halloween. Have a great rest of your night. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue the music. Again, if you guys want additional content, you can either find the rankings every Sunday morning via Underdog using the code Andrew, potentially tail the overall picks. Of course, tomorrow we'll talk about picks in the overall Hidden Gems episode. Outside of that, again, we'll have picks over the course of the weekend. And you'll get my rankings sent to you every Sunday morning for the remainder of the season. Otherwise, you can check out the Patreon. Link is down in the description. You get Thursday rankings, Sunday rankings, and unlimited questions answered. Thank you, everybody, for all the support, clicking the like button, and continuing to support the channel. Outside of that, we're cueing the music. Have a great rest of your night. And until next time, tomorrow, I'll see you guys. Peace.